Stephen Okun is the founder and CEO of APAC Advisors. That's a geopolitical consultancy firm. He specialises in US foreign policy and global trade. I understand you're usually in Singapore, but today you're joining us from New York. So welcome to the programme, Stephen. So beans, beef, Boeings in return for movement on trade, Taiwan and tech. Can you put this meeting into context for us? Are we looking at something resembling a kind of 18th century style barter here? Or is the art of the deal in 2026 really just trading a handful of rare minerals for a giant pile of American soybeans before calling it a day and leaving?
Well, I think we have to put this into context first, which is to say the U.S. and China are still very much in a trade war. This summit isn't going to change that. The actions that China has taken for decades, such as state subsidies, creating national champions, having excess capacity, dumping it into foreign markets, all of that continues to exist. And from China's perspective, what the U.S. is doing on technology, trying to restrict China, making sure the U.S. stays the leader in technology, the leader in AI, that's all still going on. We are still very much in a trade war. This is still an adversarial relationship. What did this meeting accomplish? Well, if it accomplished anything, it was to have some stabilization into the relationship as to where we are and have that be the floor. And can you build on that going forward? So that's the hope that you have. But we have to keep in mind, this is still an adversarial relationship.
And it is early days as well, specifically on tariffs. If Trump does cut a deal to lower China's tariffs while pretty much hiking everyone else's in July as planned, what do you think that means for the region at large? Are we about to see a kind of made in Vietnam replaced by a made in China again?
Yeah, no, I mean, tariffs are relative, and we're going to find this out in July, and that is when the current tariff authority that the president is using expires, and he's going to have new tariff authority. And he has said, and the all belief is that the tariffs that Vietnam is going to go back up to 20 from 10, and Malaysia is going to go to 19, and Thailand is going to go to 19. And those numbers are in a way meaningless unless you know what China's tariff is, because we've seen this diversification out of China, this China plus one. And that's a lot of Chinese companies diversifying out of China because the tariffs that the U.S. had on China were 35% and higher. And if those tariffs go lower than 35%, you can see a reverse, which is why I am very skeptical that there is going to be a lowering of tariffs in China below 35%, which means there's going to be more tariffs on China between now and when Xi Jinping goes to the U.S. for its summit in September. And that's why there is still so much work to be done between now and then to say that we have some real stability to move forward in this relationship.
Right, that's a really interesting observation. Given that there is more work to do, we of course seen this coterie of tech CEOs joining Donald Trump. We know how important AI is to both countries. Back in 2024, former US President Joe Biden and Xi Jinping agreed that humans, not AI, should be the ones with their fingers on nuclear buttons. I mean, given the current vibe in Beijing, is we promise not to let a robot start World War III? Is that really the best win we can hope for in terms of AI cooperation?
I think that would be a huge win, right? We could get that. There was some hope going into the summit that there would be some like AI hotline between Washington and Beijing, and not only for that type of national security issue, but what happens if there's an AI attack on the financial services sector that rips through the global economy? What happens if there's some AI attack on critical infrastructure? There needs to be communication in this instance between Beijing and Washington. So, you know, the same as you had that hotline between Washington and Moscow in the Cold War when it came to nuclear weapons, we should have this. Hopefully that is something that comes out of this summit tomorrow. We're running out of time, but we really do need that would be a huge win to have at least that base level of communication to prevent an AI disaster from spiraling into something worse.
And Stephen, another major topic, China is watching, of course, the US struggle with the Strait of Hormuz blockade. Why would Beijing, do you think, help Trump open the strait when they can essentially just sit back and let the US take all the geopolitical heat? Is it in China's interest to use whatever influence it has right now with Iran to help the US navigate a way out of this?
No, it's not. I mean, you just laid out the case. China is gaining from what the U.S. is doing in Iran, from the U.S. war of choice that they decided to have. The U.S. is now struggling. The global economy is taking a hard hit. Look, China's getting hit as well as anybody in terms of the economic impact of the closure of the strait, but they can withstand it better than others. And China's using this to their geopolitical advantage. China is helping countries like the Philippines with their energy needs right now because the Philippines is in pretty dire straits as a result of the war. The U.S. isn't doing anything. So while the global economy is getting hit, you're starting to see the economic hit really come to the U.S. besides gas prices right now. It's hurting the U.S. geopolitically. That in and of itself helps China. China's taking advantage of this situation to the extent that it can. So I don't know why it would be in China's interest to help the U.S. solve this problem that the U.S. got into by itself and now needs to get out of by itself.
Understood. Stephen, great to have you on the show. Stephen Okun, founder and CEO of APAC Advisors, the geopolitical consultancy firm.